Hello, this is Abby from ollieholly.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet the waistcoat stitch. The waistcoat stitch combines the ease and speed of crochet with the look of a knitted stockinette stitch. In this video, I will be going over how to work the waistcoat stitch in the round, increasing and decreasing, how to make seamless stripes when working continuous rounds, and then towards the end, I will show you how to work it flat. As usual, you'll find the timestamps in the description box down below. The waistcoat stitch is a modified version of the single crochet stitch. This piece right here is worked the standard single crochet. The only difference between a standard single crochet and the waistcoat stitch is where you insert your hook into as well as your tension. This means that if you can crochet a standard single crochet stitch, you'll be able to crochet the waistcoat stitch. The waistcoat stitch is best worked in the round. When worked in the round, the stitches stack nicely on top of each other, much like you would see in a knitted stockinette stitch. When worked flat, you'll see that the V's zigzag, but the stitches still look knitted. Before we start, here are the materials I will be using in this video. I'm using Knit Picks Comfy Yarn in worsted weight and a 5mm crochet hook. I'm going to be working around a chain, but you can also work the waistcoat stitch in a project that starts in a magic circle, just like I did for this Christmas stocking. If you're interested in making your own Christmas stocking, the tutorial for this stocking is linked in the description box down below. To start, I'm going to chain 15, then join to form a circle. The way I like to join my chain is by removing my hook after chaining the desired amount, inserting my hook into the first chain like so, then inserting my hook back into the loop, making sure that my chain is not twisted. Then I'm just going to yarn over and draw it through both of the loops on my hook. And finally, I'm going to chain 1. For the first round, I'm going to work 1 single crochet into each chain, and I'm making sure to keep my tension very loose. In the second round, I will be crocheting straight into the center of the front of the stitch. So crocheting as loosely as possible for this round will make it easier for me to insert my hook into in the second round. You'll see here that I'm inserting my hook into the next chain, yarning over, then drawing a loop up. Then I'm lifting my hook to the side to make sure that this second loop right here is nice and loose. This second loop is going to make up the front of the stitch. So if you take a closer look, you'll see that this loop is roughly double the length of the first loop on the hook. And finally, I'm going to yarn over and draw it through the 2 loops on my hook to complete my single crochet. So I'm going to continue working the rest of this first round, making sure to keep my tension loose. Then I'll show you how to start off round 2. To start round 2, you have the option of either slip stitching to the first stitch by inserting your hook under the top loops first, working your slip stitch, and then chaining 1. Then work the waistcoat stitch around. Or you can work continuous rounds by working straight into the first stitch, then continuing around. For me, I personally don't like the seam that the slip stitch creates, so I'm just going to work continuous rounds for my piece. For round 2, I'm going to work the waistcoat stitch straight into my first stitch. So that means I'm going to crochet into the post of the stitch. With standard single crochet, I would locate the top loops, insert my hook underneath the 2 top loops, then work my single crochet as I normally would. But when working the waistcoat stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the center of the front of the stitch and out the back. When you take a look at each stitch, you'll see that the front of each stitch looks like a V. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Then, when you flip your piece over to expose the back, you'll see that the stitches look like upside down V's that's wearing a little hat. So that's our first stitch, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So for my first stitch of round 2, I'm going to just insert my hook through the center of the V and out the back, making sure my hook is also coming out between the two arms of the upside down V in the back. Then I'm just going to yarn over to draw a loop up, and just like for round 1, I'm going to lift my hook to the side a little to make this second loop a little looser. Then I'm going to yarn over and draw through the 2 loops on my hook. So let's see that one more time. In this next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the center of the V and out the back, making sure to go through that upside down V as well. Then I'm working my single crochet, making sure to keep that second loop a little more slack than usual. If you are working with fuzzier yarn and you're having a hard time seeing where the center of the V is, you can take a look at where the 2 top loops meet. The front of each stitch will sit right below where the 2 top loops meet. As you continue your rounds, you'll notice that the tension of your stitches will kind of even itself out, and your stitches will start to look more uniform. I'm going to work a few more rounds so that you can see the stitches a little bit better. Then I'll show you how to increase, decrease, and make seamless stripes when working continuous rounds. Now that I've crocheted a few more rounds, you'll start to see that knitted stockinette stitch look, where the V's are neatly stacked on top of each other. To increase for this is simple. All you have to do is work 2 stitches into the same stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook into the center of the next stitch, draw a loop up, then I'm yarning over and drawing it through the 2 loops on my hook. And then I'm inserting my hook back into the same stitch I worked the first stitch into, and I'm picking up a second stitch. So now I've just turned that 1 stitch into 2. Next, I'm going to decrease the next 2 stitches, so that's these 2 stitches right here. So I'm inserting my hook into the first stitch, yarn over to draw a loop up, then I'm inserting my hook into the second stitch, yarn over to draw another loop up. I now have 3 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over once more and draw it through all 3 loops. So I've just combined these 2 stitches into 1. When you take a look at the decreased stitch when you work up to it, you'll see that there are 2 V's. One in the front that's slightly slanted, and one hidden behind it. To work into the decreased stitch, I'm inserting my hook into the slanted V that's sitting in the front. I'm also making sure that my hook is coming out between the arms of the upside down V in the back, just like before. Then I'm yarning over to draw a loop up. I'm yarning over and drawing it through the 2 loops. The decreased stitch will not be invisible, but it still does look quite neat. To create stripes when working the waistcoat stitch in continuous rounds, work up until the second to the last stitch of the round, which is where I am right now. Then slip stitch into the final stitch, making sure that you're going through the post of the final stitch, as if you were working the waistcoat stitch. Then fasten off and work a seamless join in the round. To work the seamless join in the round, I've thread my yarn tail onto a darning needle. And I'm locating the second stitch of the round. And I'm going to insert my needle underneath the top loops here and out the back. Then I'm inserting my needle into the center of the top loops of my slip stitch and out the back. With the new yarn color, I'm starting with a slip knot on my hook and I'm going to locate the first stitch of the round. I'm inserting my hook into the post of that first stitch and working my first stitch. Then I'm just going to continue working the waistcoat stitch for the rest of this round. When you get to the final few stitches of this round, you can sandwich the yarn tail from the slip knot into the backs of the remaining stitches of the round. To do so, I'm laying the yarn tail over the working end of my yarn, and I'm going to continue working the waistcoat stitch as usual. So I'm inserting my hook into the center of the next stitch, yarn over to draw a loop up, then making sure that the yarn tail is sitting on top of my working end so that when I yarn over, the yarn tail gets sandwiched into the back of this stitch. And into the next few stitches, I'm just going to continue sandwiching that yarn tail into the backs of my stitches. For the final stitch of the round, because I worked the slip stitch as my final stitch in the previous round, I'm going to work into the stitch below the slip stitch. So that same stitch that I worked the slip stitch into in the previous round, I'm inserting my hook into the center to work my final stitch of this round. Then I'm just going to pull on my yarn tail from my slip knot to tighten up that space between the first and final stitch of this round. After crocheting a few more rounds, I just want to show you where the stripes started. So this is the first stitch of the blue round, and the final stitch of that first round is right here. And unless you're really looking for it, you really can't see where the join is. To work the waistcoat stitch flat, start with a chain. I've chained 15 here, and I'm going to start by working into the second chain from the hook. So that's the first, and this is the second. Just like when working in the round, I'm going to work one single crochet into each chain loosely for the first row. So I'm inserting my hook into the second chain from the hook, yarn over to draw a loop up, and just like when working in the round, I'm going to lift my hook slightly to the side to make sure that this second loop here is nice and loose. Yarn over, draw through the two loops. I'm going to continue working one single crochet into each chain, making sure to keep my tension loose for the rest of this row. Then I will show you how to work row 2. To start row 2, I'm going to turn my piece and chain 1. For the first stitch of row 2, I'm going to work a regular single crochet stitch. So I'm skipping the chain I just made, and I'm inserting my hook under the top loops of my first stitch and working a regular single crochet. For the next stitch, I'm inserting my hook into the center of the next stitch, which is this upside down V right here. So this upside down V here. I'm making sure that the hook is coming out between the two arms of the corresponding V on the other side. Then I'm just yarning over to draw a loop up, lifting the hook up a little to loosen the second loop, yarn over, and drawing through the two loops on my hook. I'm going to continue working into each upside down V until I get to the second to the last stitch of this row. So I have 2 stitches left to work for row 2, and I'm going to work into the second to the last stitch here. For the final stitch, instead of working into the upside down V, I'm going to locate the top loops of that final stitch. If you're having trouble determining which one of the top loops belong to the final stitch, you can flip the piece over and look at it from the front, and you'll see the V in the front. The loops right above it are the corresponding top loops. So I'm just going to insert my hook underneath the top loops of that final stitch, and I'm going to work a regular single crochet. So you'll see that I'm starting and ending each row with a standard single crochet. Doing so will help to ensure the edges are nice and straight. Then for the rest of the rows, just repeat what we just did. So turn, chain 1, work a regular single crochet into the first stitch, then continue working the waistcoat stitch, inserting into the upside down V's, until you get to the last stitch, where you work a standard single crochet again. After crocheting a few more rows, you can start to see the stitches a little bit more clearly. You'll see that the V's are not stacked as neatly on top of each other as when you compare it to the piece that is worked in the round. So you'll see here that the V's are stacked nicely on top of each other. However, the waistcoat stitch worked in the flat still has that nice knitted look to it. Before I end this video, here are a few notes that I want to share with you about the waistcoat stitch. The waistcoat stitch uses up more yarn than the standard single crochet stitch. Because you have to crochet so loosely to make sure that you have space for your hook in the center of each stitch, you're going to use a little bit more yarn than usual. Also, by working into the center of the stitch instead of going through the top loops, you're sacrificing a little bit of height with each row or round. Where the bottom of your stitch would normally sit here for a standard single crochet, it would start around here towards the center of each stitch for the waistcoat stitch. So this means that to achieve a certain length or height, you'll have to make more rounds or rows. However, this also means that because your stitches are sitting so closely on top of each other, the fabric that you create will be denser. Certain things like mittens, scarves, and some sweaters can really benefit from a tight, dense stitch like the waistcoat stitch. Anyway, that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for following along, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And if you want to learn more about amigurumi or crochet in general, please consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!